Coalition meeting. First, I'd like to go around the room and do introductions. And we'll start here in person and then we'll move to anyone available online. Just introduce yourself and what organization you're with. So my name is Chelsea Wright. I am now the Drug Endangered Children's Coordinator at the Cheatham County Coalition.
I'm Melissa McGirt. I'm the program manager at the Cheatham County Coalition.
I'm Brittany Barnes. I'm the coalition assistant.
I'm Laura Durham. I'm the director of coalition.
I'm Larry
And I'm Kathy Kilgore-Beeler. I'm the mother's instructor.
It's Keisha McGirt. She's a community member.
Okay, well, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Next thing on our list is just to approve last month's minutes from the meeting.
Now it's financials, I think.
Oh, okay, we don't need to approve the minutes then.
Yeah, but I don't see it on here.
Welcome.
It's with the well.
Sorry.
Okay.
So I would like to go through the approved minutes.
Second.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we need a discussion and then motion.
Yes.
So any discussion? Is there a motion to approve? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No.
Aye.
Your financials? Yes. Don't have any current financials, so I'm gonna skip those.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so we have Miss Kathy Kilgore here with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. She's here to share her story with us this evening. Kathy, whenever you are ready.
Thank you for inviting me this evening, and always it's kind of bittersweet, you know, to be asked to share and speak and talk about how impaired driving forever changed my life. I am a volunteer with MAD, so I don't get paid. I travel to schools. I've been going out to Riverbend Prison for 10 years. I'll pretty much go to different civic groups and coalitions. I'll pretty much go anywhere and speak. And like I said, share how impaired driving has forever changed my life. And Chelsea, I think you said you I'm sure we met, I don't remember it, but I actually spoke last year for Drug Free Dixon Coalition for April Alcohol Awareness Month. So again, thank you for the invitation to be here tonight. I appreciate all that you do for your awareness and outreach in the communities. I'm from Dixon, but we're neighbors, and you know how people travel and go from county to county. So what happens in your community impacts us, and I care what happens in our communities just as a whole. So when I share, it's just a time for me to reflect, a time for me to honor my son Cole, who was killed by an impaired driver. It's therapeutic for me. I get to talk about Cole and share his life, and maybe hopefully touch some people. Through MAD, we do awareness and outreach programs also. We have Power of Youth, Power of Parent. We have victim impact panels that are geared towards first, second time DUI offenders, and they are court ordered to attend a victim impact panel. We offer those programs. In Middle Tennessee, we have Nashville, Ashland City at the courthouse, and in White Bluff in Dixon County. But we have other victim, impact panels across the state. We have Memphis, Jackson, Alcoa, Sevierville, and Football. So, for Alcohol Awareness Month, you know, it's a time for outreach, but I live this every day. And when I share and talk, I go over a little bit about MAD. Let's go to the next slide if we can. Who here has heard of MAD? Surely everybody. Okay. So I don't know if you guys know this, but we were founded in 1980. It was kind of a grassroots effort. There was a young girl, she was 13, lived in California, walking down the road, and a drunk driver hit her, and it killed her. And out of that mother's pain, she founded Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And we always say we're not against the choice and action of drinking and drinking. We are against the action of drinking and driving, or driving impaired. So we're not against individuals. Like I said, we have the Power of Youth program. So we always talk about underage drinking, UAD, and how we can kind of, what I feel like is sometimes kind of break that generational cycle that we know can happen. But just asking people not to provide anybody that's under the age of 21 with alcohol, and always have a plan. And I say, you know, if there's Uber, Lyft, whatever. I know there used to be a cab company in Dixon, but I think they have actually went out of business. Have a designated driver that's going to be completely sober. If you are going to a family event, if you're going to graduation and prom are coming up, different things this summer, 4th of July, all the barbecues and get-togethers over the holidays. And I even say, just if you're gonna be at a spot where you can spend the night, so you're not driving impaired. The next slide. Next slide. So drunk driving statistics, actually this right here, the 28 every day in America people die. That number has gone up. I checked it with NHTSA, and that number has gone up to about 32, 33 people a day on American roadways are dying because of impaired driving, drunk driving. Every 2 minutes, someone is injured in a drunk driving crash. So those numbers are up a little bit too. On all these numbers feed into each other. 300,000 plus people in America every day are driving on our roads impaired. And what I always think about is if I'm doing a victim impact panel and these folks have been court ordered to be there because they had a DUI, I always say, you know what, you're trying to get from point A to point B, right? And you're doing the right thing. You're not impaired, you're not drinking, you're not under influence of drugs or alcohol or both. And maybe you're picking up your children from school. Maybe you're trying to just go to a restaurant and eat. Who's on the road with you? Who's on the road coming towards you? And I don't think a lot of people think of it that way. But these numbers are obviously way too high. And then 2 out of 3 people will be impacted by impaired driving in their lifetime. And again, when I share, I always talk about alcohol, right? Talk about drugs, prescription, illegal drugs, anything that you put in your body that impairs your ability to drive a car, a truck, a boat, motorcycle, ATV, tractor, you know. We have some rural areas and you know, people get on the tractor impaired. It happens. So I'm gonna put a face to this statistics. Next slide. A lot of people probably don't realize that MAD offers free victim services. We have a help line that's open 24 hours a day, every day of the year. These services are provided free from anybody that's a victim or survivor of drunk driving. drug driving and underage drinking. And I just say MAD was there for me 11 and a half years, almost 12 years ago when I needed them. And I'm so thankful that they were. So anybody that's a victim or a survivor, and that could be you have lost a loved one, or maybe you've been hit by an impaired driver, we're there for all those folks. Next slide. So I'm gonna share, again, put a face to these numbers that happen every day in our communities and across America. This is a picture of me and my son, Cole. It was actually his 19th birthday, his last birthday. And I'm so thankful that my sister actually took this photo because it was not the last photo together. Christmas was the actual last photo of us together. But never knowing that about 7 months later, Cole would be gone. So what happened for us, when I share Cole's personality, and then I just share the actual brutal, horrific day that happened to us, to him. June 4th, 2011, again, I can't believe it's gonna be 12 years here soon, that I got the phone call that no parent ever wants to receive. It was actually a Good Samaritan that called my cell phone and said that he kept saying Cole's name over and over again, and he was very distraught. He was very upset, and I didn't understand what was happening at all. And he was just saying, is Cole your son? He's been in a terrible crash. And I remember asking him specifically, I do remember this, is Cole okay? Is he hurt? Is an ambulance there? And I even asked him, is Cole alive? And he would not tell me anything. And he just said, get here quick. So I was so confused because actually Cole had left the house not even an hour before. And he was age 19 at that time. And so he was an adult. He was still a teenager, but he was an adult, and he had moved back home because he had gone to college for a semester. It had not worked out. And out of respect for me and my husband, I always said, let me know where you're going. If you're not gonna come home, if you're gonna spend the night somewhere, let me know. And this night he actually was coming home. He was just gonna go down to his best friend's house where we live in Dixon, just a few miles down the road, actually. And he said, yeah, Mom, I'll be back. And I just remember saying, okay, be careful, love you. I always told Cole I loved him. Anytime we were on the phone, anytime he walked out the door, and he said, he'd be careful. I said, love you too, Mom. And then the nightmare began. When that Good Samaritan called me, I immediately ran to my husband. We jumped in the car. We ended up at the crash site, which is on Highway 47. There's a portion that is 2-lane curvy. There's hardly any median, and we ended up at the crash site where law enforcement had barricaded, so we couldn't actually get down, and it was on a hilly curve. We couldn't exactly see what was going on. And when I jumped out of the car to approach the police officer, apparently I was screaming. My husband told me this later. I don't remember that, but I was yelling and screaming at this police officer. And I was like, is that Cole? Got a call. Is he okay? And he's on his radio and he's just trying to calm me down. And he said, you need to go to the local hospital in Dixon. So if you're from this area and it used to be Goodlark, now it's Horizon Medical Center. So we jumped back in the car and we ended up at the hospital. So before I go into some of those details, I do want to share Cole's personality and his spirit with you. He was all boy. I was a single mom for many years. My husband and I got married when Cole was about 15. And so we were a team, and I will admit, being a single mom was not easy. It was hard to be a mom and a dad. At the same time, Cole was a very normal, typical boy, very active, rambunctious. From a very young age, he was very funny and humorous. He had a great sense of humor, had a great love of life. People gravitated towards him because he was so darn cute and sweet and funny, had a big heart. And, you know, every day I miss him. When we got to the hospital, I remember a nurse came to try to talk to us and explain to us what was happening. And when you get that kind of a phone call, you kind of immediately go into shock and denial. You don't understand what's going on. And that's exactly how I was. So the nurse prepared us before she would let us go back to see Cole. And what she said to us and what I remember are two different things, but she said that Cole was burned over 95% of his body. She said it was fatal, but he was conscious, he was awake, and we could go say goodbye to him before they life flighted him to Vanderbilt. And the way my brain processed that information was, Cole's badly burned, he's awake, right? And I can go see my baby, and then Vanderbilt's gonna fix him, right? So we actually walked into the ER there in Dixon. And it was cold, but it wasn't cold. Because of his severe burns, I knew it was him. But it wasn't him. He had been burned from the top of his head all the way down to his ankles. He had his work boots on that night. He, like I said, he had gone to college first semester, it hadn't worked out. So he'd gotten a job in construction and he was wearing his work boots that night, and they actually protected his feet. So basically he was burned, his whole body except his feet. And I remember, again, shock and denial. Yes, it's him, but it's not him. That's my baby, but it's not. And we walked up, my husband and I walked up to him, and I remember he was laying completely naked. And I didn't want to touch him. I didn't want to hurt him because his skin was blackened. Kind of like when you put a hot dog on a fire, and it was very traumatizing. But I knew I had to speak to him, and so I didn't want to touch him. I leaned over and I said, "Cole, baby, we're here. We love you so much, and we're praying to God everything's gonna be okay." And he actually was conscious. He was awake. And he looked at me with his big blue eyes. And the first thing he said, words out of his mouth were, "I'm sorry, Mom, it was stupid." And then he said, "I'm praying to God." And then he cracked a joke, which was so like Cole. By that time, his voice was going, and I had to lean down even closer. He said, "I'm a burnt chicken." And he made me laugh. And I said, "Yeah, Cole, yeah, baby, you're a burnt chicken." But that was so like Cole, because like I said, he was so funny, so humorous, had such a great sense of humor. Always was making people laugh. And I always say with his last spoken words, you know, he made me laugh, even though he was terrified. He knew he was dying. And in high school, he actually had gone to Creekwood High School and graduated in 2010. And the yearbook, you know how they always have the most athletic, most likely to succeed. Well, that year, Cole and one of his good friends, Chelsea, they were voted wittiest out of their senior class. And it was just so like Cole. So I say he left this earth on a joke. Even though we were saying goodbye to him, we didn't know we were saying goodbye to him, because like I said, it didn't process what was going on. And when they said they lifeline on him, I just still was thinking, you know, everything's gonna be okay. They get him, they transport him, they won't let me on the helicopter. So we actually had to drive from Dixon to Vanderbilt. And I'll never forget that. I mean, portions of that, I was just like, we've got to hurry up and get there. And when we arrived, they had to do tests, diagnostics. At that point, I had called close friends. Facebook had become really popular back then, and people were actually posting on Facebook. People were actually posting that Cole had already died, actually before he died. So, you know, social media, there can be some really good things about social media, and then there can be really, really bad things. I didn't know any of this at the time. But people were initially at Dixon in the waiting room at the ER, and then we all left and went to Vanderbilt, and then people started arriving at Vanderbilt. So tons of close friends, family. And when the doctors finally had ran their test, two doctors wanted to come speak to me and my husband. And I'll never forget that. They can give the information in such a horrible, horrific situation. They said we had two choices. The first choice was that we could actually send Cole to surgery. The doctors would have to remove his skin. They'd have to remove his muscles. They'd have to amputate. They said that he would never take care of himself again. And then what really sticks in my mind is they said that his chances of even surviving that very first surgery was less than 5%. They said he'd have ongoing years, you know, of skin grafts and rehab and therapy, and but that 5% really stuck in my head. The 95% burned, and then the 5%. The way my brain, 100% that Cole was going to die. And we gathered family, and I do remember the doctor saying, you know, he's young, he's healthy, he's in good shape, he's got a strong heart. But he, not only was he hurt and burned on the outside, he inhaled flames, and so, you know, his mouth, his esophagus, his lungs were horribly damaged. And the second choice was they could just take him to the burn unit there, the ICU at Vanderbilt, and we could say goodbye to him. And I just remember, those are my options. Those are my two choices. So we were in a room with just family, and as his mother, Cole was not married. Cole had not had any children. He wasn't even dating anybody at that time. And as his mother, I had to make that decision. Now, when they life flighted him from Dixon to Vanderbilt, after we saw him, they put him in a medically induced coma, and he was on life support. So I had to make that decision for him. And I remember telling the doctors that we would not send him to surgery. I did not want him dying on an operating table without his mama, without his friends and family beside him. And that's what I did. I made that decision to let him die in peace. So they moved him to the burn unit, and normally in ICU, they only let 2 people in there at a time. And I will say this about Vanderbilt, they let, I mean, we had 15, 20 people surrounding Cole's bed. We were singing over him and praying over him, and even though he was in a medically induced coma, I just know in my mother's heart that he knew I was there. He knew we were there and how much we loved him. And I remember telling the doctors, please don't let him wake up. How selfish of that, you know, of me to just wake him up just so I could say goodbye to him. And don't let him be in pain. And as a mom, as a mother, you know, that's one of the things you can do for your child when they are in pain. So that was on Saturday, June 4th, 2011. Like I said, Cole was, he was fighting really hard. And he actually lived for 10 hours after the crash. I remember when they came to us and told us it was time to take him off life support. I ran to the corner and I started heaving into a trash can. It literally felt like somebody had punched me in the stomach. But I had made that decision that he would not die with those tubes down his throat, and that he would die in peace. To go back a little bit, the driver actually died at the scene of the crash. We later found out that his blood alcohol content was 0.144, which is almost double the legal limit of 0.08, and that he had cocaine in his system. Obviously, we didn't know all that at the time, except for the fact that when the EMS got there to help Cole, he told them that he was the passenger, the other guy was the driver, and that he knew the other guy had been drinking beer. So when Cole made that decision to just go down to his best friend's house, a couple miles down the road from our house, he pulled up into the driveway. He never actually made it into the house because his best friend's dad and some friends were sitting outside, hot summer day, and they were drinking beer. I wasn't there, but I heard that this one guy was giving Cole a hard time. I would call it bullying. He was 38 years old, so it wasn't peer pressure, but he was giving Cole a hard time about the type of car that he drove. Cole loved hot rods and fast cars. Like I said, he was all boy, regular, normal teenager. And at age 19, he had bought, sold, traded. He would work on cars. And at the time, the car that he was driving was, I would consider a tuner car, you know, kind of, it wasn't a hot rod in terms of, you know, like a truck or a Camaro or Corvette. It was a turbocharged Volkswagen Jetta. And that guy started making fun of him for driving that. And he told Cole that he had a 66 Chevy pickup truck and that he had souped it up and worked on it. And he said, let me show you how real hot rod runs. I was told that some, you know, some not some pleasant things were said back and forth, but that Cole decided to jump in the truck with that guy. He was a sober passenger. They got into the truck. When I share, I try to be transparent. I try to be really honest. I mean, I know I have a limited amount of time, but I could stand up here and talk about Cole all day long. But I decided when I share Cole's story, I'm his mom, I'm his voice, that I can stand up here and sugarcoat everything, but you know what? I was a single mom. Things weren't easy. Cole was a rambunctious child, a handful. Sometimes I didn't always have a handle on things. He was different from me in some regard because I was not wild like Cole. I'm not gonna say I was never wild and did some things in high school. I mean, there was a small bit of time that I kind of had some things that I look back and think, oh, I should have done that. In fact, goodness, I didn't get caught. But that was back in the 80s. And but Cole had gotten in trouble for underage drinking. Cole had experimented with drugs. So he was not perfect. He was not perfect, but he was my baby. So we lived in Nashville, Bellevue, before I got married to my husband. And I found out that Cole was about 13, and he was drinking alcohol and smoking pot. And what I decided as a single mom, I thought, you know what, we're gonna leave Nashville, the big bad city. We're gonna move back to Dixon, a smaller town, a community where everybody knows everybody. And not everybody, because Dixon is growing, but you know what I mean, my parents, my sisters, and a smaller community. And I thought, we'll watch over Cole and keep him safe. That's what I thought. But as we know, and as you work in the community, you know that if kids want to get drugs and alcohol, they're going to find it. And there was a time that Cole was about 16, 17, and he got in trouble for underage drinking. We had court costs. We had to go to court. We had court costs, legal fees. Cole had to do community service. He had to go to alcohol and anger management classes. And there was a whole time there that he even lost his driver's license for a year. So he was not perfect. The day, his last day on this earth, he was not drinking, he was not doing drugs. And when we got the medical examiner's report back, in my mother's heart, I knew that. And like I said, he had told EMS that the other guy had been drinking. So I knew that in my heart that Cole didn't lie about that. And that's what happened. That's what we found out months and months later when we got the medical examiner's report back from Nashville. So that last month, Cole had some struggles, but he was working really hard. And I just feel like if he had lived through that crash, that he would have figured out his life. He would have gotten a second chance. If he were alive today, he'd be 31 years old. I could be a grandma. I don't know. He could be married, having children. I don't know. I'll never know. And let me tell you, a lot of my friends are becoming grandparents, and I don't begrudge anybody their happiness. I just wish I had it for me and for Cole and for my family. Because when this happened, everything changed. Our family dynamic. Even though Cole was only 19 years old, he had an old soul. And like I said, people gravitated towards him, but even my family, he could bring the family together and get us all laughing and just have a wonderful time. He just had that personality. And, when he died, a lot of that died with him. And in terms of keeping our family together. So for a 19-year-old, it's amazing what he did. So when I go to schools, when I do any kind of speaking, I just want people to understand that Cole wasn't perfect. He had his own struggles. He had his own issues, but he was a good boy. He was a good person, like a loyal, so sweet, had the biggest heart, would help anybody. And no one deserves to die that way. And definitely as a mother, I didn't deserve to ever see and hear and smell things that I heard and saw and smelled that night. So I always encourage young folks to reach out to resources and get help, and don't ever get in the vehicle with somebody that's driving impaired. And that happens a lot. And fatal crashes for teenagers are high because of some sort of impairment or distraction. And it's preventable. Cole did not have to die that day. He chose to get into the truck, but the guy that was the driver, he had not been drinking, and he had not been doing drugs. He would not have lost control the way he did. We were told they were going about 100 miles an hour. So that driver was severely impaired and had no business being on the road. So when, like I said, when I share, I always try to share Cole's spirit, his personality. Every morning I wake up and my son's dead. I live with this each and every day. If there was something I could do to bring Cole back or what happened, I would in a heartbeat. But I just know that I don't want it to happen to anybody else. As a parent, if you're a parent, I don't want this to happen to anybody you know and love. Because it's a choice. Impaired driving, you're making the choice to drink or intake whatever substance you are doing to create that situation where you're impaired. And I'll be honest with you, before Cole died, my husband and I, we'd go to a restaurant. Never would we get blitzed or anything like that. Like I said, there were some days in high school that I did some things that I regret. But as an adult, I just didn't think anything about it. Having a glass of wine or a bottle of wine, and it just never really penetrated that I might be on the roads impaired personally. So since Cole's died, that's my husband hardly ever drinks at all. Every once in a while I'll have a glass of wine or something, but I never drive. So I truly believe that it's a choice, and it's a choice that we make, and it doesn't have to happen. It's preventable. And also, when I decided to share Cole, I created this video that you can see, and it shows Cole when he was a baby until the end, so you can have an idea of who I've lost, what I've lost.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy. Skies green. You never know how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. The other night, as I lay sleeping, I dreamed of you in mistaken. Please don't take my sunshine away. Please don't take my sunshine away. Don't say goodbye. Take away the sounds. So if you don't mind, just say no. Never and I hope it's someday. God made this whole world right. It's that way. And I will forget someday. Something that other place some other time. Never get down, you go, you'll never know. I hope it's someday.
So that's whole, and I apologize, when I share, sometimes, grief and trauma does things to your brains, but the last thing Cole said, I make sure I make that clear, is he said he was a burnt chicken, and in that video, you can see that, the picture, there's chicken legs, and that in high school at Creekwood, his friends had nicknamed him Chicken Legs. So he was really proud of his skinny little chicken legs, and when he said that he was a burnt chicken, he was, like I said, he was joking, but he made me laugh. So I hope anytime I share Cole, anybody that listens, especially kids, maybe they can relate. Either they know a Cole, or maybe if you're a parent, maybe you have a Cole. But that's who I miss each and every day, and that doesn't change. But like I said, I hope nothing like this ever happens to you. Share one little thing. Like I said, at the time of Cole's death, Facebook had been getting really, really big. Wow, I have lost it. There was oh, there it is. Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm froze. I want to get my stuff together here. Facebook had gotten really big, and about 7 months before Cole died, this is what he wrote on Facebook. He said, "It's always good to get away from what's not good for you, even when it feels like it's the best. Because everyone and everything aren't always what they may seem, or at least not until you take a step back and look from a different perspective." And when I said, Cole was an old soul, that's, to me, to be 19 years old and to write that is pretty significant. I just wish he had taken his own advice that last day. I've got some poems that Chelsea, the young girl that was holding Cole, all right, they were voted wittiest. She wrote this poem after Cole died. If you would like to have a copy, you're more than happy to have one. I always pass these out when I share. If you want to contact me, here's my cards. And I just want to, again, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight and to share. And again, thank you for what you do in your communities and trying to keep our folks and our kids safe. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
So I imagine that all of it's kind of quiet after the show.
Sometimes when I go to schools, it depends on the age. Sometimes they'll ask questions, because like I said, I think Cole resonates with a lot of people. He was, he did not see color, he did not discriminate. He loved people, he loved everybody, and had so many friends, and just was a good kid. And, I think sometimes our kids get wrapped up and pulled into situations that they don't know how to get out of. And, if I can share and speak and give them a voice and, you know, because again, the power of youth, power of youth program is different, than this exactly. And we go over some statistics and we try to engage with them. But always encourage them to, again, never get into the vehicle with, you know, an impaired driver. And a lot of times I don't think they really think of it that way. And then if maybe it's an adult, right? Maybe it's a parent. And, you know, encourage them to reach out and with a trusted adult, somebody from school, maybe their church, and try to get themselves out of that situation.
I have a question. So you mentioned Ashland City has a victim impact panel. So the attendees for that, is that just adults that have been charged?
They, typically the way they run it is adults. And if you are court ordered to a victim impact panel and, they're a minor, their legal guardian or parent has to come with them. So anytime we do a victim impact panel, and we had one, last month, we had one minor show up without a legal guardian, anything, and no photo ID, which they have to provide. And, her sister had dropped her off, and I was like, your sister has to come back. Because, you know, this is, when we do a victim impact panel, again, we're putting a face to the statistics. So these are not easy stories. So if they're underage, they need somebody there with them. And you hope that gives them the opportunity for that parent or that legal guardian or that adult in their life to open a dialogue with them.
So what is?
It's a program that's designed for first, second time DUI offenders. And the way the law reads is you can be ordered, and I call it drunk driving school, right? It's the 10-12 hour program and or a victim impact panel. So MAD, we offer victim impact panels across the state. And that's having a live speaker in person to share, like I've done tonight. And you hope, you know, you're not gonna reach everybody, we know that, you know that. This is an uphill climb that we do every day in what we do, but I always say, I've changed one heart, or if I planted that seed, and maybe they don't remember me, but maybe they remember Cole. And I truly believe that it can change lives. I have been doing this for so long now that I have actually been in public. And I've had people come up to me and said, I saw you speak at a victim impact panel. And I have never, you know, I haven't drank and drove since then. So I know it works. I just have to kind of grow a hard shell to understand and realize it's not going to change everybody. But yes, I work with Vinny and Lori, and Jonathan is, you know, he is new, Soledad, and we do a victim impact panel. We try to do one every quarter.
So if someone has been convicted of drunk driving, they could be sentenced to jail, or they could be sentenced to AA meetings, victim impact, community service.
Well, the way, again, the law reads, they are usually either or. If it's a first time offense, you know, it's 48 hours in jail, you know, there's anytime there's an offense, there, whatever the law is, but the judge's probation, if it is drunk, like, you know, drunk driving school, that is basically a 10-12 hour class or a victim impact panel, or both. They can do either or. So depending on, you know, DAs and DUI prosecutors and coordinators and probation, they might say, hey, you know what? They need to go to drunk driving school class and the victim impact. So I will tell you that there are people in our classes, It's not that I know, but they're third, fourth, you know, fifth time offenders. We've even had, one that was court ordered, he killed somebody. And it was all over the news. And he shows up, he had been court ordered to come to like 50 victim impact panels. So he would go to Nashville. At that time, we had one in Clarksville. We don't have one in Clarksville right now. He would go to Nashville, White Bluff, Clarksville. And he might have gone to other ones. I just know the ones that he came. And when I looked up, I knew who he was because it had been on the news. And I knew he had killed a young man. And when his court ordered attendance to victim impact panels was over, one of the last times he came, I was speaking, and he just told me thank you, and that, you know, things had changed in his life, and being a part of the victim impact panels, he changed him.
I don't know what drunk driving school would be, but we can't be more.
It's not, it's more of a program that goes over, how alcohol is metabolized in your system, and, they show videos, so it's statistics. Like I said, it's usually about 10-12 hours long. And then a victim impact panel that MAD does is about a 90-minute program. Now, they do, have to pay $40 that goes to MAD. And we're a nonprofit, so that money goes towards victim services. And then they get a certificate to prove that they were there, so they can give it to their probation officer, their attorney, the report. That's proof that they fulfilled either their plea bargain or sentencing or whatever. Good questions.
Do you like offer, or does Matt offer like counseling services?
We do not. I consider it counseling, but the victim services, we have other victims and survivors that have become victim advocates, and we do have support groups. And we had, before COVID, we had them in person in Nashville. Excuse me, I went to those for years. I went to Compassionate Friends. I don't know if you know that Compassionate Friends, we have a chapter in Nashville. They're a nonprofit self-help support group for bereaved parents for any reason, any age. So I went to Compassionate Friends for many, many years, and I went to one-on-one therapy, just me and the therapist. I went to her for about 6 years. After Cole died, I was diagnosed with PTSD. And you look at PTSD, and I had every symptom. Nightmares, flashbacks, anxiety, panic attacks, insomnia, still have insomnia, you know, so many issues. And my therapist, between MAD, Passionate Friends, my therapist, I stand here today. I was suicidal after Phil died. And I almost wasn't here. I literally wanted to die. So how in the world is Cole not alive? How in the world did he die such an agonizing death and I live? So it took me a long time to understand that my purpose, whatever it is, I feel like maybe it's to be Cole's voice and to do that outreach and awareness. And I know it's some cliche, and I don't really like cliches, but that his death is not in vain. Thank you. Good questions. Thank you. Thank you guys for what y'all do. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So at this time, if anyone has any announcements? Online or in person? Not online.
So I'll mention that we had a good marijuana vaping town hall last week. This week, or this last week?
Last week.
Yeah, it was relative to it. I thought some great questions. You did a great job. Great job. And there's a lot of information to share with the community. So it was good.
agreed, the hidden in plain sight room
Yeah.
did really well.
Yep.
We had several folks come through and they were just like flabbergasted, just like so shocked. But they all were very like appreciative upon leaving, like, so glad that this was here, like, I never would have guessed, never would have thought. So just to piggyback off of Larry's comment on the town hall, I definitely think it went well. Well, so I just want to announce here that, free medication lock boxes are available at our office at 395 South Main Street here in Ashland City. We're open 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Anybody can come by and pick one of those up for safe medication storage. We also have Quick Kids available at our office, same time, same place, also free. We have the National Drug Endangered Children's Day coming up in April on the 26th, so just keep an eye out for your email, see what we've got going on for that. So stay tuned. And the coalition will be at the movement meetup in Pleasant View, April 22nd from 9 to 12. With fun little games and prizes and giveaways and cool information for kids and adults alike. So
Is that at the park in Pleasant View? Is it community park?
I can't remember which park it was.
Is that community?
Community Park in Pleasant View. Okay, well, if that's it, then. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.